All right. Hello to everyone. We're kicking off this live 24-hour event with a conversation with Dr. Annette Cargioli, inventor of Emotional Polarity Technique and author of the best-selling book, The Forgiveness Doctor. She also has a podcast called Listen, Love, Give that also tells all about Emotional Polarity Technique. Dr. Cargioli lives and practices in Indianapolis, Indiana. You can find her online at www.eptworks.com. And on her website, there's all kinds of free information about Emotional Polarity Technique. And it'll help you learn that if you want to learn some things about it. Her recent book, The Forgiveness Doctor, is available on Amazon. And it's a full explanation of what we're going to be talking about, Emotional Polarity Technique, her own invention. And I also want to comment that her podcast has over 50 informational, intense segments that are geared for both practitioners and lay people who want to learn EPT or are learning it, and it increases their skills as a professional, as well as an enjoyable resource for anyone who's looking for information and is interested in forgiveness for healing. That's what it's all about. And I'm Sherry Hamilton. I have been an EPT, Emotional Polarity Technique practitioner for more than 20 years, and Dr. Cargioli taught me how. And I live and practice in Huntsville, Alabama. I learned it from her, and I'm now one of her lead trainers in the core training for Emotional Polarity Technique. I also have a podcast. It's called 100 Days of EPT, and you can find me online at eptworkshuntsville.com. So during this hour, we're going to get you really excited and interested and give you lots of information about Emotional Polarity Technique. You're going to know what it is, how it works, and how it can benefit you by talking about some of our best clinical stories. So we're pretty sure you're going to want to learn it for yourself, for your family, and probably for your professional expansion. And welcome, Dr. Cargioli. How are you this evening? I think I got all that in.
Fantastic. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for doing this.
Good to see you. All right, so I want to start and ask, what is Emotional Polarity Technique? You made it up. Tell us what it is.
Okay, well, I want to start by saying what Emotional Polarity Technique is not. You know, in the world of healing, when your life sucks, when you are falling apart, and you know, that's just the way life is. Sometimes things get hard. Sometimes people we love die. Sometimes people we love leave us. Divorces happen, abuse happens, all kind of stuff happens. You know, your house burns down or you lose your job. It's just part of living and your own evolution from a consciousness standpoint. So what we have had in the world for over 70 years when this happens to you are two choices. And, you know, one is the platform of pharmaceutical drugs where, you know, well, I better go get a prescription because if I don't get a prescription, I'm not going to be able to keep doing my job. I'm falling apart. I'm going through a divorce. My kid's a drug addict and I'm going to have to get a prescription myself. So I'm going to get some Prozac or I'm going to get some Ativan or some Wellbutrin. And that's what the world says. Here, your insurance will pay for this. And then the other platform that we all know is years and years of traditional talk therapy. And there are people who will just refuse to do drugs, but they want to do talk therapy. But at the same time, you know, life is short or life is long, however you want to look at that. And these two platforms are really the only thing that insurance will pay for, the only thing that we've had when, you know, you have a friend whose life is falling apart. And, you know, generally speaking, when your life is falling apart, your body and your health is also in the toilet. You know this. Everybody knows this. You know, I'm not going to go through a divorce, lose my dad to lung cancer, lose my job, have a kid that's a drug addict, and not physically have a problem. It all goes together. So what we've had in the world for over 70 years is drugs and talk therapy. Now, what I want to say is it is time for new imaginative initiatives in emotional health care. And I specifically want to say, It's not mental health care. It's emotional health care. And that's, the way I like to look at it, because your health is what is impacted when your emotional state is out of control. And, I say out of control, meaning, it might be valid for you to be depressed, but you don't have any control over what's happened that has created this depression in you. So emotional polarity technique is just that. It is a new, imaginative, holistic emotional health care that has 25 years and more of clinical success ending depression, anxiety, financial problems, health problems, and all manner of physical and emotional and spiritual pain. 25 years of clinical. Now, that makes us babies on the scene, but I want you to think about those times when your life is literally falling apart. There are so many holistic things you need to do. There's vitamins, there's getting your, going out and exercising, there's getting to the right practitioner. But I want to tell you, if you don't change the meaning of your life, if you don't make deep, inner, meaningful changes within your own consciousness, you're going to do it again. EPT is this imaginative initiative. We have over 25 years that makes us babies on the scene, but it also makes us heavyweights because we have over 25 years of clinical success ending depression, anxiety, and all manner of physical and emotional and spiritual pain in people and in their lives.
That's so amazing. I'm just, and I understand exactly what you're talking about, and we're going to get into the meat of how this works. So before we get to the process, actually what you do to walk through emotional polarity technique to get to the core of, that all important forgiveness, we're going to get there too. I want to know, you say 25 years, how many hours, clinic hours, have you spent with people in session? And, tell me about that. 25 years, kids must have grown up with you.
I totally, it's really true that I have done, it's actually, right at about 25 years. And I added it up once based on the number of people that I generally saw in a week. And I figured that I have done over 10,000 hours of EPT. Now, in addition to what I personally have done with people and seen tremendous results, I would even say miraculous results. It is so often that I am blown away by the results I see when I can identify a problem within someone and help them to shift that life meaning using forgiveness and also change the way their body feels. However, I've trained several hundred people how to do this. And, Sherry, as you know, you're one of them. And those people have also met with miraculous, amazing, and fulfilling results very quickly using this method. And it has become an amazing alternative to those who have actually experienced it. And, I'll say this too. In my practice, and I happen to be a chiropractor, I do a lot of nutrition. I've really become, my gift is in emotional healing. But, in my practice, and those of you who are practitioners, this, when you get these incredible, rock star results with people, they want to bring everybody in. They want their parents, they want their best friends, everybody they know who's stuck in life, they want to bring them in. What's amazing to me is I've had a few people in the 30 years I've practiced holistic healing and chiropractic and nutrition and all of this. I've had a few people who said, I want to pay for somebody to come in and get adjusted, Dr. Cargioli, but I have had so many people that love EPT so much that they are willing to pay for their friends, their family to come and have EPT done because they have such a hard time describing what happened. So that's kind of something that's really unique about it, but it's definitely more than 10,000 hours. That's just what I've done. But over the years, people I've trained have also had their own remarkable clinical success.
Yeah, I agree with you. And after we had discussed this, because that was a question that came up, I wondered how many hours you had done. And that's just in clinic. That's not all the free giveies you've given away.
Oh, man. Yeah, a little bit of
I counted my clinic hours, and I'm not a full-time doctor. I'm a layperson, a mother who learned how to do EPT because it affected me so much, and I wanted it for my children. I went back and I became a professional in emotional polarity technique after all these years. 22 years I've been practicing. I think I'm at about the 9,000 to 10,000 hour mark now in my practice and in all of my work, which amazed me and made me really happy to think, hey, I really am a professional here. Even though I love teaching the professionals that come to class. We have a combination of lay and professional people. So let's get to the process of EPT. I want you to explain that really simply. Break it down for us, Dr. Cargioli.
All right, I could go in so much depth here. I've got notes because I wanted to stick with the bare bones here. So emotional polarity technique gets faster and more permanent relief from the stresses for your mind, your body, and your relationships. And it does it. So it gets you more permanent relief. And the reason it does that, it does it because you change a person's life perception and meaning. And it does it through a practical. So this is something that I'm going to tell you, like a lot of the stuff you hear in energy work is very woo-woo. Let's just say it. And, you know, I love that stuff. There's not my level of belief that there is a God who loves me, who wants my life to be better than it is right now, who created me to glow and to put out into the universe and to make the world a better place. I believe so strongly that God loves me so much that when things aren't going really well for me, I'll pretty much do anything. And for those of you who are, you know, love their little Bibles, and I'm one of those girls, I'm a Betty Bible all the way, grew up with a minister as a father. I'm going to tell you that, you know, healing in the Bible always is weird. You know, even Jesus put mud on somebody's eyes. You know, here Jesus is God, and Jesus, you know, God certainly should just be able to say, oh, you're healed. And it didn't happen that way. You know, and then there's that Old Testament example where, you know, Naaman has leprosy, and he goes to the healer, and the healer, prophet healer, says, you've got to dip 7 times in the filthy Jordan River. And it's like, what? You know, why didn't they just heal these people? But even in scripture, there is something that you're expected to do. And so what I want to say about that is EPT is not, you know, there is some, you know, it looks different to you because it's not talk therapy, and I'm not going to give you a drug or a pill. It's going to be holding a few points that are very brief, and it's a very practical and collaborative effort. And what that means is I'm not going to throw some, okay, I'm not going to say, this is something that you have no idea that happened in your life. I'm not going to make up a memory that you can't collaborate with me on. Instead, I'm going to zero and laser right in on the memory at age 6 when your dad was beating up your mom in front of you. I'm going to say things that you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to like pull something out of the hat that you look at me and say, there's no way that happened, or well, I guess if you say it happened, it happened. We're not doing that stuff like that. It's very collaborative. It's very practical technique. It is something that has meaning to the person I'm working with. And again, I'm saying all this because I want you to realize that this isn't going to be something that is mystical, strange, that you can't get your head around. because you can get your head around the EPT. It's an arrangement of a lot of sciences and ideas that I've basically put all together, and then they have a multiplied effect to change the person at a very core and consciousness level. And the 4-step process, so we break it down. There's so much going on in an EPT session, but we're going to break it down to 4 steps. And if you read my book, The Forgiveness Doctor, I go into all the detail all of you want that I'm not going to go on into here. You know, we teach EPT to people. We do hands-on classes. This is not a class. You don't change people's consciousness by going online. I'm just going to say that. There's a difference when you show up for somebody in person as when you are online. Now I know you can do long distance healing. Don't get me wrong. And that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about relationships that humans need, and that online and long distance is not the same as being with the person. It just isn't. If it was, then we could have marriages that we never lived in the same house. We would just get online and talk to each other, right? But we all know that's crazy, because relationship is more than a conversation with a picture or an energy change. Relationships have far more to do with something in a conscious level and who we are as human beings, as divine creations of God. And so the 4 steps: focus, and that's focusing on the problem you have. Find it. You find the original trauma memory that relates to the problem that goes with your focus, and then fix it. That would be to change the actual physiology of the body to the reaction to that memory. And then finally, forgiveness. And forgiveness is where we even go deeper and we change the person's meaning that they gave, their perception that they had of that trauma that happened, that is now operating in their life to cause pancreatitis, or to cause cancer, or to cause depression. And once we identify that moment of forgiveness, and we can do it really quickly. That's why EPT is kind of mystical to people, because they didn't know you could change consciousness that rapidly, where the person themselves realizes they were a part of it. Because, oh, you know, newsflash, if you're going to change consciousness in somebody, they have to be a part of it. If the person is not a part of the change, they're just a robot, okay? That's crazy talk. That's magical thinking. And we are all given our own agency, and that's the kind of change that makes the difference in a person who is healing. So forgiveness, I want to say a little bit about forgiveness, because I am the forgiveness doctor. But forgiveness is the key that enables instant and permanent changes in EPT. Forgiveness doesn't just change pain. It changes the way you think about the pain. It changes the way you view pain. It changes the way you view the hard stuff that happens to you in your life. And when you change the way you view the hard stuff that happens, your life meaning changes. Every experience after that, how you think about it, changes. Every experience from the moment the trauma occurred that you had because of that trauma, it all changes in one mystical forgiveness moment. That's why forgiveness is so, you know, people think of it as being religious, or, you know, some people think of it as being a duty. It's not. It's this power that we've all been given. And using forgiveness to change life meaning is absolutely the most powerful part of the process of EPT.
That's amazing and good explanation. So you have the 4 steps: focus, find it, fix it, forgive it. That is a central part of every emotional polarity technique session. Anybody that's a professional doing emotional polarity technique should be doing the focus, find it, fix it, forgive it. And that's how you'll know you're in a session with a professional emotional polarity technique person. Well, and we've learned it from Dr. Annette. She's got a really amazing outline that we go by. Before we go back to the forgiveness, because that is what we're trying to get everybody to walk them to in a session. It's not always an easy task because we dig our heels in. We don't want to do that sometimes. And people understanding that they've got a problem and they show up and say, I've got something really unusual going on, or I've got a problem with my kids, can you help this? And that would be the focus. Then the find it, we spend a lot of time in core training actually experiencing how to find that original event or work on it, the one that's right there. It could just be that child that is scared to go to school. It could be something that we would say is simple. Of course, Dr. Cargioli has worked with everything from simple to complex in her experience, and we're going to talk about some of the different various ones of those. What is the fix it part? I want you to explain that just a little more detail when you explain okay, so we come in, focus, find it, we've got that original event, and we say, okay, you're hurting here now, you got a divorce, but you know what? When you were 7, something happened and it triggered your emotions to be much bigger. So now we're going to do a fix it for the body physiology. Please explain that, Dr. Cargioli.
All right. So the fix it is where really there's 2 components to the fix it. I mean, I call it fix it because that's the component where we use magnetic energy, which is a magnet. So we use magnets over the body to basically interfere with the status quo, because the speed of a magnet is the fastest energy we know on the planet. So when you put a magnet on the body, it immediately gets the body's attention. So when we're doing the fix it, we've identified a trauma in childhood typically, unless it's a known trauma, like for example, a person who has gone through a terrible life experience where they lost all their possessions in a tornado, then we may be talking about that specific event. But if it's something like, for example, a person hits a wall in their life and they're depressed, and we go back and we find out that it had to do with when they were 12 years old, and they tell us in that collaboration, oh, my brother died when I was 12 years old. And we kind of like, okay, well, then that's probably the trauma we're looking for. That has been an unresolved trauma. So we find it, and we do that through muscle testing. The fix it is 2 parts. One is we change the body physiology. We use magnets, breathing, a little bit of visualization, and a couple body points. Very brief. Changing the body's physiology takes less than 30 seconds. Then, second, we use forgiveness. And the forgiveness statements are what are used. Then, once we change the body, we have an open door into this person's consciousness to give them an opportunity through forgiveness to change their perception, their life meaning about this thing that hurt them in their life. So first, it's changing the way the body feels. Second, it is actually stepping in there with forgiveness and giving them a chance to change the meaning of what happened. Because when you change the meaning, that's when you get real permanent change.
That's amazing. And I know it's amazing because I've had it done to me over and over and over again, working on my own mindset. And I've done it with hundreds of people in my practice. And it is amazing. Now, I want to know about some examples of life-changing. I mentioned that you've had children you've worked on that have grown up and become adults in the time that you worked on them as children. So Maybe you have some memorable clinic experiences with some children.
Let me talk about what life-changing means first, because a lot of people, I'm saying that, I'm throwing that out there, and, some of you are kind of going, oh yeah, life-changing, that means, let's see, that means I had cancer and I healed cancer, right? Well, anybody out there who's a practitioner in, who is working with people who have cancer, who have seen them through the healing of cancer with alternative methods, and I'm one of those people who has helped someone through that. I have seen that happen on multiple occasions. That's life-changing. But here's what you learn when you have someone who goes from a life-threatening illness to, I no longer have cancer. I am cancer-free now, going on 10 years and 20 years. I am cancer-free. They will all tell you that the only way that they healed that cancer is something internally in them changed. And that's what I'm talking about. They change their life meaning. No one overcomes a major illness without changing the meaning of life. So I want to say, here's my examples of changing life meaning. So a person may decide to stop doing drugs because, quite frankly, it's no fun anymore. My body's falling apart, it sucks, and I'm gonna stop doing drugs because it's just gotten too hard, right? They stop doing drugs. Now, there's never gonna eventually they're gonna forget how bad they felt. And normal life comes along and it's no fun, and they're gonna use again. That's just how it's gonna be. Now, when you change life meaning, this same person, this is a person who decides to stop doing drugs because they realize they are loved by God and others, and what they have to give to the world matters. That's a change in meaning. That's what I'm talking about. You know what? That is the trick of permanent healing. That is why the average person who goes into drug rehab has to go 7 times, because in drug rehab, they haven't figured out how to make this change in life meaning happen in someone's consciousness very fast. EPT literally speeds that process up. It's incredible. And, and now that you've got your head around, this is what we're healing. When you change life meaning, that always demands a collaboration, partnership with the person you're working with. They're not going to be this sit by the side and you're going to like twitch, do the knot, and then it's just going to be magically changed. That would be a robot, but we're people. It doesn't happen like that. We aren't created that way. We have consciousness and we have choice. Everybody has that, whether they acknowledge it or not, they possess it. And we have the power to use the power of forgiveness. And that's what this is about. So I'll give you one more example of change, and then I will, I'm going to talk about these, some children that I've seen. A person decides to lose weight and work out because they want a romantic love interest to notice them. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to eat right. I'm going to get this gorgeous rock body, this beach body. And the reason I'm doing it, my meaning is because I want to get that guy to like me, right? Okay, that's one way to do it. You change that person's life meaning, and now they decide to lose weight and get fit because they care about being the best they can be for God and those that have sacrificed to get them here to this part in their life. That, my friend, is amazing healing. When you can do that rapidly, you have taken this world to a whole nother level, one person at a time. It's amazing. So yes, I have definitely experienced some beautiful and miraculous healing in the lives of both children and adults. And for my own life, I just want to say I am so full of gratitude for those people who put their trust in me, students who have taken this training, my own family, my coworkers, people who have supported me in ways that are so, it's just too numerous to mention, and God, because without all of this support around me, I couldn't really do anything. And so I'm here saying that it is with gratitude that I bring forth EPT and that I share all of this with you, because nobody is an island. Nobody is doing this on their own. It is just coming from so much support that is seen as well as unseen in our lives. And that's true for everybody. And, you know, I want to say my vision is for Emotional Polarity Technique to be a universal model for compassionate, imaginative initiatives in emotional health care. It is time for healing initiatives that clearly demonstrate, promote, and inspire and expand God's love and healing for all, and especially children who we have failed, who are suffering. Now, since you're asking about children, I've worked with, I think it's perfect right here, before I even go into the children, to mention the ACE study. And the ACE study, it stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And this is a study that was done by the big old fancy CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control. And what they were looking to find out, they started this around 1995. It's gone for over 20 years. And what they were looking for was not what they really found. What they wanted to do was they wanted to find out what is the actual effect on children who are in adverse life experiences. We want to know if it affects them in their adult life. Well, what they found was that the junk that happens to you as a child, that scene where your parents, you know, go bankrupt and you move from the mansion to the ghetto, and then your parents get a divorce, and then your mom goes on drugs, you know, that scene, those scenes, as they add up in your life, in your childhood, the more of those you have, the higher your risk for having, guess what? Heart disease and lung disease and pregnancy and STDs. I mean, you know, pregnancy, unwed pregnancies, and failed relationships and failed financial prosperity. All of those adverse childhood experiences raise your risk. And so what they found out was that absolutely these types of traumas that occur in your childhood, and they narrowed them down to just a handful, and I'll tell you what they are. They absolutely are the reason you can't be financially successful as an adult. They absolutely are the reason you have pancreatitis for 20 years. They absolutely are the reason you end up with cancer when you're 40. They absolutely are the reason you can't seem to get and stay in a relationship and have a great marriage. They absolutely are the reason. So when the CDC did this ACE study, they had no idea they could correlate it so directly. I mean, it is changing actual traditional pediatrics because of what they found out. So, and, you know, basically there are three, you know, this is 20 plus years. There are three major traumatic childhood experiences that they asked about in this questionnaire. It's a very short questionnaire. You can Google it and find out all about that ACE study. It's pretty impressive. So the first thing is abuse, emotional, physical, or sexual. The second thing is household challenges. If you had poverty, you know, or if there was violence against your mother, or if your parents did drugs, or if you had a brother who was a drug addict or went to jail, that type of thing. And the third thing is the measure of neglect. So neglect is where you either, you know, you have emotional neglect, nobody's there for you, or you literally you don't have a house, you don't have a bed, you don't have adequate clothes or food. All of these are what the ACE study asked people about. And the higher the number you had on that test, the higher your risk for a list of physical and emotional challenges that you will face as an adult, that they directly correlate. What is amazing about this study is, and to me, EPT directly identifies these types of adverse traumas usually in childhood. And for example, I had a lady who came to me with pancreatitis. That is extremely painful. She was referred by her medical doctor. She was on 9 medicines for pancreatitis, and she still had extreme debilitating pain in her body, which is what pancreatitis is. It's an irritated, inflamed pancreas that really hurts like hell. She came in and we identified 3 adverse childhood events in her life. We walked through forgiveness, reframing and changing the meaning of these adverse childhood experiences in her life. She walked out without pain. The next time I saw her, she was on 1 medication, and it wasn't for pain. Now, that's the kind of thing that is amazing, that when you, with EPT, you can actually go directly to what the adverse childhood experience is this person had that is now directly causing their physical problems, their emotional problems, and you end it. You end it right there. You resolve the thing that happened to them as a child when they're an adult, and it still stops the disease, the pain, the depression pretty much immediately. It's absolutely incredible. So when I saw this ACE study, you better believe I was all over it, because I already knew that I could talk about somebody's parents getting divorced when they were 6 years old, and all of a sudden they have a healthy relationship in their life, or they are like happy again, even though they went through a divorce themselves. It's quite amazing, you know. Or I have somebody who has low back pain, and I find out that, you know, their grandmother was merciless and beat them for no reason every day. We forgive grandma, we forgive the person for what they believe about grandma. We walk through a series of forgiveness coaching statements, and this person's never touched their back, by the way, and I'm a chiropractor, and their pain vanishes. So you better believe that I understand that the junk that happens to you in childhood that is not fun and that's not pretty and that causes a great deal of suffering, it goes into adulthood and it causes even more problems. EPT identifies that, changes the meaning, and ends the suffering so quickly, it still just amazes me. So yeah, I'll tell you a couple people, you know, I have a couple examples that I wanted to give. I'm thinking I want to make sure we have, yeah, we're good on time. I have a couple examples. One, you know, and I thought of these when you had asked me. One is a lady who came into me with, she had a 6-year-old daughter. Now, she herself had come to me. She was obese. She was a mom with a 6-year-old daughter who was also obese at age 6, who dressed sexually provocative. And if you wonder what that is for a 6-year-old, that's wearing really tight hot pants and a, you know, like a bikini top in the summer to the doctor's office, that kind of thing, and having some makeup on as well. So that's what this 6-year-old looked like. Now, the mom had been sexually abused as a child, and she knew this. But she didn't know, you know, we didn't know or have any evidence whether this child had been sexually abused. And we walked through the process, and the little girl never told us any details of any sexual abuse, which means she may or may not have been abused. She didn't have to tell us for us to change the psychological conscious meaning of the pain and suffering she had been through at age 6. Now, I remember at the time looking and thinking, this little girl, I don't know if this is going to work. This is years ago, by the way. One of the first people I worked on, and the mom was insistent. But as we got a little closer to maybe it's, could it be the dad? We weren't sure. Nobody was talking about it. We weren't presuming anything. The mom said, all right, I'm not coming back. And that was the end. So I got 6 or 7 hours with this little girl. And I thought, I don't know, she's going to be turning prostitution tricks by the time she's in junior high. I mean, you know, you just look at her and you're like, this is really bad. And mom is like charging away here when we start getting close to maybe dad's got problems. I didn't see this little girl again until she was in high school. And oh, by the way, her mom was still obese, but she had trimmed up. And she didn't get tall. She was still short. She became this petite, very, very healthy, fit young woman. And she came in because she had performance anxiety. And her mom said, okay, I guess now it's okay for her to come in. And still there was no talk about whether there was sexual abuse, but we were able to, in 7 sessions of EPT, totally remove her performance anxiety. And I was blown away by what a beautiful young woman this girl had become. And now I'm going to tell you, she is a medical doctor, married to a medical doctor. She has kids. She has great relationships. Her life, she made it. It just, yay! It's amazing. It's like, wow, I didn't know when I worked on this little girl. She didn't come back dressed right. I saw her 6 hours. She didn't look like anything changed. I was going into her database, her consciousness, and walking her through specific forgiveness statements to change, to alter her meaning in her makeup. And she's a little girl. She wanted love. She wanted to say yes to love. So she was open to that. Now, another one I'm going to talk about that is also years old. There was a single mom of 3 little boys. They were like a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 9-year-old, I believe. And they had 2 dads. So this family, single mom, she saw me doing a demonstration somewhere. And she said, oh my, I got to get my boys in to see her or I'm going to have a mess, because the 2 dads of these boys were potheads who live with their mom and dad and have no jobs. So that wasn't the case when she married, I think she was married to both of them, not really sure. But you see the situation she was in. So I don't have it. She's a single mom, no support. She has these 2 deadbeat dads. Her boys know that dad smokes pot and lives with mom, or lives with his mom and their grandma. So, I mean, this was the foundation of these boys. So I did more than 7 hours with each of them, because the mom came in and she said, I need to do work because you know what? I'm looking at a future pothead in my house. I mean, let's face it. We all know this. We have friends we see this with. Who's going to intervene when you say, wow, this kid does not have a chance? You got to wait till they're older to intervene. So I worked with all these boys. And you would think that at least one of them would be a pothead who lives with their mom. But no, not one of them is a drug addict or an alcoholic. All 3 are upstanding young men with great relationships. They have incredible talent. They all have great jobs. They're amazing young men. And my favorite part is they love me and they still show up to my office for EPT when they know something isn't working right and we need to forgive something. And that's kind of amazing. So I just say those are 2 families that I would have looked at. And if nobody intervenes on a family like that, it's not going to go in a good way. It's not going, that child isn't going to get a break. Somebody has to steer it. And forgiveness is the way that brings the life more meaning. So I know that, Sherry is a master practitioner of EPT, and she has so many of these stories herself. And I would love for her to tell some of her own experiences with EPT and her own clients.
Oh, Dr. Cargioli, that's really nice of you.
Oh,
I love sitting and listening to your stories. They are on, and it's amazing. I think that there's just such a variety of stories. Some of the ones that are so profound to me are like right at the beginning, just learning EPT out of the gate 22 years ago. I worked with a teenager who had gone through a car wreck 2 years before, and she had a scar across her face, and she was throwing up every day. It was a really unusual symptom. And I'm thinking the same thing. I don't know if I can help this, but you know what? The doctors hadn't been able to help. So EPT was her thing to try. And within the hour, she reported back 2 weeks later. When she came back, there was no more throwing up, like 1 time instead of 14 times. And it was all based around a mindset that her life had been ruined because of that car wreck. There was no pill that could change that life meaning or perception for her.
right.
So it was an amazing change for her. And, okay, so let's talk about a little bit about the amount of time that people will come for this therapy. You mentioned 7 sessions. 7 sessions is really the basic to get in there, and people will feel a difference in an hour, but 7 sessions will cover a whole lot.
Absolutely. Well, and I tell people, I say 7 sessions because typically when somebody comes in and decides to do EPT, they come in and they've got a very specific change they would like to happen. They want this change to happen in their life. I'll give an example of a real basic one. I had a businessman that came in and he could not he had extreme anxiety spending the night in hotel rooms, right? So, and he told me it started after he had, like, the lights were out, he laid on the pillow and he got jabbed right below his eye with a needle that was a safety pin that the maid had left in the pillow in the hotel room. So he's almost just, he hit, this thing jabs him, he jumps up, he's screaming, and he's like trying to figure out what's going on. It was very unsettling for him. And after that was when he couldn't stay in hotel rooms, and he was a traveling salesperson. So this was huge. Well, here's what's amazing. I'm thinking, okay, we're just going to work on this getting jabbed in the eye with the pen. But no, we go to an original experience when he was in high school, and he was laying in the bed in his home at home, and a spider walked across his face and bit him right below the eye. And he had completely forgotten that that had happened. That was what we had to resolve. And in the meantime, he had all manner of anxiety with different situations that kind of bled over. So we worked with him with 7 visits. Well, after the first or second visit, he was already reporting he was doing great in the hotel rooms. But now he was saying, this has made me feel better all over. Now I'm looking at limitations in my life that I want to add to my list. So people don't generally want to quit because we got rid of the first thing they wanted to get rid of.
Right.
They start opening their mind and saying, oh my, you could probably help me with this and with this. And we do. So we always recommend 7 visits.
Yes, it's really amazing. And, just part of the power in healthcare, in emotional healthcare, is knowing that you have the control to make your own progress there. So people like to make their progress, and some people are weekly, some people are twice a month, some people are monthly, and some people do 7 sessions a year. People decide.
Well, and I will throw in there that, there is no limitation to emotional healing. I think everybody who has a cancer diagnosis and everybody who's taking care of somebody with a cancer diagnosis is under enough stress that they should be looking internally to speed up that process of changing the meaning of life. It's just, it ought to be the way we view life. That's what has to happen to change, to heal some of these really difficult things to heal. I will also, since Mike had mentioned Alzheimer's, one of my favorite clients ever, I'll never forget him, came in, his daughter wheeled him in. She wanted me to help him go to the other side. Basically, she thought he was afraid of dying, and that if we did this emotional release, it would help him to move on, right? Well, what happened was we found his root of depression, and he got out of the wheelchair, started walking. He was no longer Alzheimer's. He actually went home, started mowing his lawn. I mean, all of this happened inside of 2 months, and it was specifically with emotional healing. I mean, we were doing forgiveness, changing life meaning with somebody who was so out of it in the first visit that I had to have his daughter surrogate with him as we walked through these statements. And literally, I thought that what we were doing was helping him to die, but instead he lived another 2.5 years, and he didn't.
So amazing. Yeah, I know. I love that story. And that happens in our offices so often. We just, we could go on and on. We're at the end of our time, I think, and it has been such a pleasure learning about emotional polarity technique with you.
Well, and I want to say that no matter who you are, if you are doing any kind of healing and life changes, and you probably are, if you're on this symposium and you're listening to all these great speakers talk about ways to change your life, I want to tell you, do not underestimate your own consciousness and the power of your own consciousness and the techniques that exist out there to really help you to change your life meaning. EPT is amazing with that. And I just really, I just want to say God bless you on your journey. And thank you, Sherry. And thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks, Dr. Cargioli.
You're welcome.
Hey, let me come in here. Yeah, it's a great talk. Let me stop the recording here, and thanks for that.